My drinking became because I struggled with anxiety. I didn't know it was anxiety back then. I'm just knowing I needed to have something before I go out.
On June 13th, 2026, hours before he died, Aldon Smith was delivering pizzas to a homeless shelter in the Bay Area. That same man was once the 7th overall pick in the NFL draft and once recorded 19.5 sacks in a single season. This is not a story about a man who threw his career away. It's about what the NFL did while he drowned. Growing up in Greenwood, Mississippi, Aldon Smith was the kind of athlete that made scouts drive hours just to stand on a sideline and watch him warm up. One active college season at Missouri, 60 tackles, 11 sacks. The Big 12 named him Defensive Freshman of the Year, and by his sophomore year, the comparison every scout was bringing back from Columbia was the same name, DeMarcus Ware. In scouting language, that is not a compliment. That is a projection about where this was already heading. San Francisco took him 7th overall in 2011.
The San Francisco 49ers select Aldon Smith, defensive end, Missouri.
He didn't start a single regular season game that year, lining up in a rotational role, relieving starters in passing situations, coming off the bench, while other defensive backs rotated in for rest. It still didn't matter. In 16 appearances off the bench, 14 sacks are the second most by any rookie in NFL history since the stat became official in 1982. Half a sack short of Javon Curse's all-time record without ever being named a starter. Let that sit for a second. Then 2012 arrived, and any remaining conversation about his ceiling stopped. Justin Smith was collapsing pockets from the inside, opening lanes offensive tackles couldn't seal, and Aldon had room to operate that looked almost designed for him. By the end of that year, 19.5 sacks, breaking a 49ers franchise record that had stood since 1971 in a 14-game season. In the Week 11 game against the Chicago Bears alone, 5.5 sacks. His 33.5 career sacks through 2 seasons were the most any player had ever produced in their first 2 years in league history. He reached 30 career sacks in just 27 games, faster than Reggie White. The NFL Top 100 ranked him 7th in the entire league, and San Francisco went to Super Bowl 47. At 22 years old, the destination felt inevitable. But here is what nobody said out loud. 5 days after San Francisco lost the NFC Championship in January 2012, Smith was arrested on suspicion of DUI in Miami Beach. He completed a diversion program, the charge was reduced to reckless driving, and neither the 49ers nor the league made a single public statement. And then, it got worse. 6 months later, a party at his San Jose home turned violent. He was stabbed. 2 guests were shot. Hundreds of people were outside that night. When deputies responded, they found 3 illegal assault rifles in his bedroom: an Armalite AR-10, a Bushmaster ARC, and a Bushmaster Carbon 15 purchased legally in Arizona, but banned under California law, with large capacity magazines on the bedroom floor and ammunition on the bedside table. During the chaos, Smith himself fired shots into the air to disperse the crowd. The franchise said nothing, and the league said nothing. But what the silence was actually protecting was only just beginning to show itself. But here is where the story starts to show what it was really made of. The 2013 season didn't arrive as one crisis. It arrived as several of them were close enough together that when you lay them out end to end, they stopped looking like separate incidents and started looking like something nobody inside that building wanted to name out loud. On September 20th, Smith drove his car off a San Jose road and crashed into a tree. Arrested for DUI and marijuana possession. He entered voluntary rehab, missed 5 games, came back, and still finished the year with 8.5 sacks in 11 games, enough to rank 33rd on the NFL Top 100 that season, despite missing nearly a third of the season. And in that world, production had a way of making uncomfortable questions disappear before they ever fully formed. And what the 49ers did next still doesn't make sense when you say it out loud. Smith turned himself in on 3 felony counts of illegal assault weapon possession stemming from the 2012 party and posted $75,000 bail, and 2 days later, the 49ers activated him to play. 3 active felony charges on the books, and the franchise had him back on the field in 48 hours. The following April, he was detained at LAX after a TSA agent alleged he'd claimed to be carrying a bomb. Investigators said he had become belligerent at the checkpoint, though the Los Angeles city attorney had disputed that claim.
According to the LA police that I spoke to a short time ago, Smith then became belligerent and uncooperative with the process and with the TSA agent, making a comment that he was in possession of a bomb before proceeding towards the gate area. Once he got to the gate area, Los Angeles airport police made contact with him at the gate.
But then the NBC Bay Area found something that made all of it look almost secondary. While the weapons case was still open, Sheriff Lori Smith had instructed her department to treat Aldon as a victim throughout the investigation, which is why that same department had invited him and 49ers teammates to ride in the sheriff's helicopter and fire weapons at the agency's own shooting range using the very department that had confiscated those rifles in his bedroom. How does something like that happen? The NFL's first formal discipline came August 30th, 2014. A 9-game suspension, arriving 2.5 years after his first arrest and after 4 separate documented incidents. Not when the problem first surfaced or when the felony charges landed, but when the pattern became too public for the league to keep absorbing quietly. Smith served it, came back, and recorded 2 more sacks in 7 games. And for an institution measuring everything in wins, that number still closed every conversation before it could go anywhere uncomfortable. But what did the institution actually owe a man it had used for everything he was worth? On August 6, 2015, first day of 49ers training camp, Smith was arrested on charges of DUI, hit and run, and vandalism. And here's the part that tells you exactly what kind of institution this was. Earlier that same week, San Francisco's front office had publicly told reporters the franchise planned to keep him into 2016. The next day, they released him. 1 more arrest, 1 day after his contract year ended, and the same organization that activated him 2 days after felony charges moved on in under 24 hours. Head coach Jim Tomsula called it a sad day. But what it really was the most honest thing the 49ers had ever communicated about what Aldon Smith meant to them.
It's a sad day. This is a day that doesn't have anything to do about football. Although he won't be playing football for the San Francisco 49ers, he will be supported and helped.
Oakland signed him the same day Santa Clara County prosecutors filed the misdemeanor charges from the August incident, agreeing to a deal worth up to $8 million in incentives. He appeared in 9 games for the Raiders that fall, recording 3.5 sacks. On November 15th, 2015, he sacked Vikings quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, his last sack as a Raider, number 47.5 of his career. 2 days later, the NFL suspended him for a year. And right there is where the league's own rules showed exactly what they were built to protect. Have you ever watched someone desperately need real, daily, consistent structure and seen every rule around them specifically block the people closest to them from providing it? Raiders head coach Jack Del Rio went on record about what that suspension looked like from inside the building. It does get frustrating, Del Rio said, to not be able to help a young man and provide support and provide structure. Somebody else has to make those decisions. It's just out of my hands. The league's terms restricted Raiders staff from meaningful contact with Smith during the ban, limiting the team to the director of player engagement only, and Del Rio said plainly that the experts simply don't allow anything beyond that. When Oakland eventually released Smith in 2018, Del Rio went further. He had never agreed with a policy that stripped the team of the ability to give these players what they actually needed. And the word he kept returning to was structure. The 1-year suspension became indefinite in November 2016. He re-signed with Oakland in April of that year on a contract that wouldn't pay him $1 until the league reinstated him. He applied in October and heard nothing. The 2016 season passed, then 2017, then 2018, then 2019. 4 full seasons with no team, no organized support, and no path forward beyond submitting a reinstatement request and waiting on a decision that kept not coming. In March 2018, a domestic violence incident involving his fiancée led to his arrest on charges of assault, false imprisonment, and vandalism. When police arrived at his home that night, Smith was already gone. The Raiders released him within days, and by November, he had pleaded no contest to 2 misdemeanor charges, was sentenced to 90 days, and was permitted to serve at an inpatient alcohol and drug treatment center. Every institution connected to his career had a fast, clean process for removing him the moment he became a liability. Not one of them had built anything to reach him before that became the only move left. But what nobody saw coming was what Aldon Smith was about to do with the little time he had left. In April 2020, the Cowboys signed him after he showed up to workouts at 287 pounds and in noticeably better condition than anyone had expected. Nearly 5 years without a team, without structure, without any of the things Del Rio had said out loud that he needed, here he was at 30 years old, lining up for one more shot at it. The NFL conditionally reinstated him on May 20th, and when opening night came against the Los Angeles Rams, he played. And he made it count. In 16 starts for Dallas, Smith recorded 5 sacks and 35 quarterback pressures, second on the Cowboys' defense in both. Then, in Week 14 against the Cincinnati Bengals, a fumble came loose right in front of him. He scooped it up, turned upfield, and ran 78 yards for a touchdown. The first of his entire NFL career, and the 5th longest fumble return in Cowboys franchise history. On April 15th, 2021, the Seattle Seahawks signed him. And for a moment, it looked like Dallas had only been the beginning. 2 days after signing, he was arrested in Chalmette, Louisiana, on a second-degree battery charge after allegedly choking a man unconscious during a confrontation that began inside a coffee shop. A warrant was signed the following day, and he never took a snap for Seattle.
2 days after, Smith officially signed with the Seattle Seahawks. This was the arrest warrant issued for Aldon Smith.
But then came December 6th, 2021. On a freeway off-ramp in Redwood City, California, that afternoon, Smith rear-ended a stopped Recology garbage truck. The driver suffered injuries to his back, wrist, knee, leg, and foot. Prosecutors said Smith approached the vehicle, told the driver he couldn't have police at the scene, and offered $1,000 in cash to not call 911. The driver refused. When Highway Patrol arrived, empty bottles of vodka and rum were found inside the truck. And beyond the criminal charges that followed, Smith was ordered to pay the driver $3,819 in restitution and Recology $38,649 in damages. His blood alcohol content came back at 0.288, more than 3 times the legal limit. January 2023, a no contest plea on a felony DUI charge and a sentence of 1 year in jail. Released October 24th, 2023. Days later, on the I Am Athlete podcast, he said simply,
Yeah, I'm done with ball.
What came after barely made the news. He launched I Am Loading Intelligent Movement, built around mentorship and recovery coaching for young athletes navigating the pressures his own career couldn't survive. He worked directly with the rookie classes of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Las Vegas Raiders. In June 2024, he told Keyshawn Johnson,
I'm grateful for my journey so far because where I am now.
The league reinstated him 5 separate times. Each one came with conditions. None of them came with a net. On the last day of his life, Aldon Smith was delivering pizzas to people with nothing. Not because anyone organized it, not because anyone was watching, but because that was the kind of help he understood firsthand and never once received from the sport that built him. Aldon Smith died June 13th, 2026. He was 36. No cause of death has been released. His family has sent his brain to Boston University's CTE Center for testing, with results still pending. His family has also retained attorneys to investigate the circumstances of his death. If this story matters to you, the super thanks button keeps this series going. Subscribe because the next story will blow your mind.